We just watched the trailer for Get Out.
Ooh.
That's right, baby. It's time for movie trailer trash. Enjoy.
All right. As Charlie just said, we watched the trailer for Get Out. This is movie trailer trash.
Movie trailer trash.
And as you can tell, it was quite scary.
It was really scary.
I will
It was
say
one of the
this.
scarier trailers that I've seen in a while, like actual trailers.
The last trailer to scare me like that was The Witch.
Yeah, The Witch was pretty
And-
scary, but it even had funny parts in it, though, like where you laughed when the girl was like, bah, bah.
Yeah,
She was doing that to the
might have
goat.
just been us. I think that creeped everybody else out. We just thought it was hysterical. But
Bah.
okay,
Bah.
but in fairness, we haven't done a lot of horror movie trailers on this show. And however, that's also because not a lot of great horror movies come out. You know, it's not like coming out as often as a big blockbuster movie.
Right.
We did do the one
Don't Breathe.
Don't Breathe with the blind guy.
We also did The Witch.
Yeah, I just mentioned that.
Well, yeah, but you didn't say that we did an episode on it.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
just-
sorry. So you guys definitely go back and watch those or listen to those episodes.
Yeah.
The Witch, Don't Breathe. Don't Breathe is more relevant and recent.
I didn't see Don't Breathe when it came out, but I did see The Witch,
Yeah.
and it is scary.
But yeah, so I would say this. The Witch was really scary. Don't Breathe, the trailer was scary to me, but nothing like this. I'm so scared when I watch it.
Also, if you have noise-canceling headphones, I recommend watching this with the noise-canceling
Because
headphones.
that's what we just did.
That's what we just did, and it was terrifying, and
Okay.
it was just like so good.
Well, yeah, and so in fairness, Charlie and I have both seen this before, but this was our first time listening to it in these headphones, and I think it very clearly scared us both a lot more because of that. And I think that just goes to show that, sound plays a huge role in horror movies.
Yeah, there was a thing that I saw once
huge.
where they got like famous horror movies that are like really famously scary and unsettling, and then they took the sound out.
Yeah.
And they took the music out, and
Yeah.
they just had like people, like their steps and like their voices, what they were saying. And when people would watch it in a theater setting, they like didn't get scared at all. Like their
Yeah.
heart rates didn't go up and stuff like that. And so it was really interesting.
Yeah, so it's very clear that it plays a role, and I think that that's part of why going to a movie theater and stuff makes it that much scarier. If you're not a fan of horror movies, but you kind of want to watch it, sometimes it's easier to watch at home. But this looks really good.
Yeah. Well, and this movie, the reason why it's interesting is that it is a horror movie that looks to be a true horror movie.
Yeah,
you know?
and it was
written and directed by Jordan Peele, who is one half of Key and Peele.
he's the Peele half,
Oh.
just to be clear.
Okay. Yeah, and which is the
shorter one.
the amazing sketch show from Comedy Central.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were gonna say which half he was. He's the shorter one.
He wears glasses.
No, yeah, they're amazing.
And they're
so very funny.
and it's so like silly and goofy. A lot of the stuff that they do that you wouldn't expect this out of them. You would expect like Keanu, the thing with the cat that they made. I never saw that, but I kind of wanted to because I like them so much. But yeah, so that's interesting. Every once in a while, you get a comedy, like a comedian or a comedic actor who wants to do horror because they kind of have a tendency to like horror movies. And I think that's kind of how Scream was, like how Scream came about, because it was a movie that was a true horror movie that was simultaneously being scary and making fun of horror movies at the same time.
Well, and I don't think this is going to be making fun of horror movies so much as it will be maybe a love letter to horror movies.
I don't even think that
it's just
is
going to
the
be a
case.
good horror movie.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. I found a really good article about this. And we'll put the article up with this podcast so you guys can read it if you'd like. But basically, Jordan Peele has basically said that that's what he really wants to do. He really wants to do horror movies. He enjoys comedy, but he loves horror. And so he's excited about this. And this is his first debut into the horror genre.
Yeah.
And I think they just did their first full-length movie, right?
Well, that was Keanu. Yeah.
And that was a comedy.
Yeah, and they wrote that and probably directed it as well.
But this is just him. I don't think that Key is involved at all.
No.
It's just him and it's just his thing. But yeah, I mean, okay, so it looks really good. Let's say who's starring in it.
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean,
I
don't know their names. I just recognize them from other things.
Okay, well, let's talk about it. So
it's the guy who plays Snoop from Straight Outta Compton.
Yes, the guy
is in it at some point.
Yes, I think he's a very small role, but they show him probably because he's pretty famous now because he's been in a couple of good movies.
The main character.
The main character is the main here. The main character. Since you didn't look up the names, I can talk about this too, just as well as you can. I'm just saying. Okay, so if you've seen the movie Sicario, the main character in this movie is her Emily Blunt's partner. And so let's just kind of go into it. The concept, the kind of the broadest sense of
the broadest sense.
The easiest, quickest way for me to summarize it is that the concept of the movie is that a black man of the movie Get Out is that a black man is going to meet his white girlfriend's family. And he asks her, "Did you let them know I'm black?" And she's like, "What? Do you want me to say like I'm bringing my black boyfriend?" And they are laughing about it and whatever. But the whole concept is he then goes to meet her family, and they live in this very white suburban town, and it's kind of creepy because he's the only black guy around. But then it gets even more and more creepy.
Well, and apparently there have been multiple black people that have gone missing from this suburb.
His friend, for whatever reason, was like, "I'm gonna Google the suburb he's going to." And he's like, "Dude, this is weird."
That friend, by the way, was way too involved in his friend's life.
Yeah, he was. He was. But yeah, so I mean, first of all, I will say the guy from Sicario was one of my favorite parts of Sicario, and I love that movie. So like he was great. He was a smaller role in Sicario, but I loved a couple of things. I loved that his relationship with Emily Blunt was completely platonic. They were friends and they were partners, and
he's also going to be in
cared
Black
about
Panther.
each other without having any sexual tension. I really love that when movies accomplish that. And also he was just great. Everything he said and did, the way he acted and reacted to things felt really natural, and that takes a good actor.
Yeah, he is good. I mean, he's like I said, he's also going to be in Black Panther.
That'll be awesome. But I mean, that whole movie will just be awesome.
Yeah, that movie seems to be like it's going to have every single impressive young black actor that is in Hollywood right now.
Yeah,
like every single one.
I mean, the majority of the cast will be entirely black because it takes place in
Africa.
Yeah, is it a fictional area?
Yeah, well, it's a fictional country in Africa.
Vibranium comes from
Wakanda,
or isn't it vibranium? Is that what they call it?
Mm-hmm.
So, it'll be awesome. It'll be interesting to see, and I think it'll be awesome because it'll not just be all of the really young, famous black actors right now, but there will probably be a bunch of people who get their chance in this. So that's gonna be cool. I love watching kind of no-name or lesser-known actors.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, and back to Get Out. Yes. Is the other people in this movie are also recognizable, but not to the point where you would know their name as soon as you've seen them. So like the girl's parents, the dad is what's his name, Josh from West Wing, and he was also in Cabin in the Woods.
Oh,
another
really?
awesome.
I recognized him. I recognized him from that probably.
Horror movie that is also a comedic
comedy
type thing. A horror movie written by someone from a comedy background.
Yeah.
And then the mom is the love interest in 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then his girlfriend, the main girl in the movie, I read is from the show Girls.
Okay.
So I've never seen that, but apparently she's recognizable in that way. So it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of, like he said, actors that maybe you've seen, maybe you don't remember their name, but they all seem to be pretty good actors that you've seen in other things, and you're like, oh yeah, I know that person. They're pretty good.
Now, the thing about this movie is that I think that it is going to take a long time to get going.
To get scary?
And then all of a sudden, everything's going to start and finish in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Just
I kind of love
because
that, though.
For one reason, that's kind of how it looked in the trailer. Like a bunch of little small creepy things start happening, and then something big is going to happen. And then also because that's kind of how old school horror was done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Think of the one movie I saw that is old school horror was Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire movie is just a movie. It's just a movie about a girl trying to leave town. I was so shocked. I was like, when when does all the terrible things happen? Isn't he a murderer? And spoiler alert, that's from what the
spoiler
60s.
alert for Psycho.
Yeah, for Hitchcock Psycho. But the thing is, no, seriously, I was like, I thought this person's supposed to be a crazy psycho murderer. And then one bad thing happens and you're like, and then you wait a little bit and then a whole bunch of stuff happens at once. And it's awesome. It's so good.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be interesting. I would not expect to laugh at this very much. Maybe at the beginning a little.
I think you're going to get a lot of lines that are not supposed to be funny, but are so real and like the way a normal person would actually react that they seem funny, but they're not. They're just real. So you know what I mean?
So awkward.
Kind of.
I could see laughing because it's awkward.
So like him reacting to that creepy guy who was like crying and his nose was bleeding while he's like, hey, good to have another brother around.
Yeah.
And he turns around and he's like starts freaking out.
Weird.
And the guy's just like, dude, whoa, yo, dude. And he's like backing away and pushing him off
of
him.
No.
And that was kind of funny, but just because you're
but
not,
it's also terrifying.
You're not used to seeing someone write that real of a reaction for something like
and
that.
also here's the thing. That was really scary to me, that part, but the music in that part I think is just the music in the trailer. That's the thing. There might be a lot of parts like that where there's no music and then it's different, it'll be more like just a little bit uncomfortable, like, whoa, that was weird, but I think a lot of stuff that might make you laugh would be the uncomfortable stuff. They poke fun at the fact that, like, yeah, there's a little bit of an awkward it's a little awkward for a black man to come to a very white neighborhood and meet his girlfriend's white parents for the first time.
Yeah, there's gonna be that like meet the parents type humor at the very beginning of it.
Definitely.
When they first get there.
And so back to the article I read. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about it. So it talks about how it very clearly plays on racial tensions. So there's basically, I think three main parts of the trailer that are very obviously about racial tensions. Like, first he asks her, like, do they know I'm black? So he talks about, like, maybe you should warn them. They may be shocked or not expecting this, right? So that's one thing. And then the cop, so at one point in the trailer, they hit a deer, which, by the way, is terrifying. Of course, just a jump scare. But they hit a deer, and a cop comes to check on them or whatever, and he asks him for his license. They're both standing outside of the car. And she goes, oh, he wasn't driving. And he's like, I didn't ask if he was driving. I asked for his ID. It was, like, really uncomfortable and, like, irritating. Which, again, and made you want to be like, oh,
like,
my God.
Such a real response of a like police officer. That's something that would do that.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
You could totally see a police officer doing that, partially just because they don't want to look like an idiot, so they're like, I can ask for someone's ID just because they weren't driving, but also because there are a lot of, there's problems in some police forces with racist policemen and whatnot, and so it's hitting on this uncomfortable thing that people, obviously it's a big deal in our country right now, and it's very relevant. And I think, and that's kind of what he talks about. He wants to talk about that stuff because he says it shows a side of horror that he hasn't seen. So anyway, hang on, let me look at this for a second. Hang on. Okay, hang on. Okay, so he talks about how it definitely jumps off of racial fears, the movie. He said that to me is a world that hasn't been explored, specifically the fear of being a black man today, the fear of being any person who feels like they're a stranger in the environment that they're in, that is foreign to them. And it deals with a protagonist that I don't often see in horror movies. So
right, yeah.
So I guess the thing that kind of I thought was interesting, the way he said, like, anybody who feels like they are an outsider in a foreign area, it kind of gives, lots of people have that fear. Lots of people are afraid of, like, being the only girl somewhere, like anything, being the only white person somewhere. You can feel uncomfortable being the only minority somewhere. So I thought it was interesting because this was already, I'm sure he wrote this a long time ago, and it'll always be relevant. This type of uncomfortableness and this fear and these type of racial tensions are going to exist in the world. But I thought it was really interesting how it can play into the whole election with all the fear mongering and all the people being,
Well, this movie doesn't come out until next February.
Yes. I'm not saying that it's coinciding with the election. I'm saying it's interesting that it's a movie that is showing, what it's like to be afraid that people will treat you different because you're different,
right.
Like he has no reason to think that her parents are going to not like him because he's black, but it's uncomfortable to go somewhere knowing you're potentially the only black person, and you're wondering, are they going to treat me different because of this?
Well, and another interesting thing about the actual horror portion of it is that they're not just like, as far as I can tell, they're not just like a bunch of racist, they like black person serial killers.
Yeah.
There's something weird going on where there's like the place is like cursed or something, and there's some sort of strange spell that these people are being put under. And
well, it's really interesting. Yeah, like it's not like they don't necessarily imply at all that her parents are racist or that there's any real racist in the town. It's just a very like overly suburban place. And a friend of mine said it reminded her of Stepford Wives,
right?
Which I've never seen, but I could totally see what she meant because I've seen the trailer for that. And yeah, I was thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, there's this woman in the trailer who is I don't know, I guess like a cook or a maid in their house.
Yeah.
She's a black woman, and then there's a black man who clearly does like the gardening. And they talked about like the dad mentions like we hired them to help when our parents got sick or whatever, and then after they left we couldn't bear to get rid of them. Like we liked them so much we wanted to keep them here. Well, that woman who is the help, she looks like she is very like robotic, almost like a Stepford wife. Yeah. And actually the moment where he's talking to the guy like, hey, good to have another brother here, and then the guy's nose starts bleeding, and he starts yelling, by the way, get out, get out, get out. Those moments like where she's talking to him and where that guy's talking to him, they like seem so robotic and unnatural and creepy. So I can see how there's that Stepford Wives type of feel to it.
Yeah, there's
so
someone is
it's
doing
not
something to
normal.
them that is making them, I don't know, like.
I think maybe he's just going crazy though. I think there's going to be a question. Is he just imagining things because he's nervous and anxious and uncomfortable, or are these people going crazy? Like, are the people that are acting all robotic, is that really happening, or is he just making it out to be more than it is?
Well, if that's the case, then he has actual like mental problems that he needs to be in a psych ward for.
Okay, I don't think that is the case. I think that he'll think that. Like every time, you said, every time a little uncomfortable thing happens, he'll be like, I'm just being paranoid.
Right.
I'm just being anxious because this is my first time meeting them and whatever.
That scene with the guy in the straw hat where his nose starts bleeding and he's crying and stuff, that's probably the turning point for him where he's like, all right, I need to go.
Well, and also he takes a picture of the guy.
Yeah.
So it's clearly after his friend had said something to him. I mean, it makes it look like that. And I think he takes a picture of the guy to send to his friend to be like, hey, is this guy on that list, or is this guy, So, oh God, it's so weird. But yeah, so the scary parts, that guy yells get out at him several times and then jumps on him and they have to pull him off. There's another part where the man who gardens is just sprinting at him in the middle of the night, and then like right as he comes close to him and the main guy's eyes are getting really wide, he just takes a sharp right.
Yeah.
And you have no idea. It's like, what was that?
That was terrifying.
It's like, why were you sprinting at me full speed and then took a sharp right? Like, what a weird thing.
And then he turns and looks at the house, and the black woman that is like the cook or something is standing right at the window staring out at them.
I didn't even notice that. So much happens in this, and it's so creepy. I had to take one of my headphones off. I was like, I'm terrified. I can barely get through this. And I'm not one to be super excited about horror movies. They scare me a lot. But and then the scariest moment for me is the very end of the commercial or the trailer where the black woman that works inside the house he's just joking with her, and he says, oh yeah, I always feel uncomfortable when I'm the only, or when I'm surrounded by white people, or I get uncomfortable when there's too many white people around. And then she says, oh, no. She just keeps going. And,
and she's laughing and crying.
Yeah, she starts
to
she's kind of laughing like, no. And it's terrifying. And that's how it ends, basically. It's her being like, no. I mean, some other stuff happens, but I'm like, that right there, I'm like, okay, that's the moment I leave. I make a like lighthearted joke about like, oh, I hate it when there's too many white people, and then she loses her mind and has a nervous breakdown. I'm like, that's the moment that I'm like, where's the car? Time to leave.
Well, we're clearly excited about it, so let's move on to where, when, and how we're gonna see it.
All right.
Where? When? How?
Are you gonna see this movie?
Okay, so this is interesting. Most of the time with horror movies, you're going to hear me say I'm not going to see it. Like 100. Well, most of the time. So with this one, I do want to see it. So that is new. And
what?
I mean, here's the thing. To me, and I mean, maybe I'm completely wrong. You know, maybe it's just an amazing trailer, whatever. But based on the trailer, this looks like it's going to be an awesome movie. And I don't think I can handle it in theater, though. I really don't. But it's hard because I know it'll be better in theater because of how scary it was in the noise canceling headphones compared to regular. It was scary regular anyway, but I think I would rather watch it at home on like a Saturday morning so I have the whole day to get over it, because that's what I need when I see a scary movie.
I'm going to go all out. I'm going to the theater, to the AMC opening night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Getting into it.
Getting real into it. Because I think it's universal. And so I think it's going to be, mass release or whatever they call it when they give it to all the theaters, because I was worried about it.
It's not an indie film.
Right. Because usually when you have someone who is writing and direct, like when
who's
you
writing
have
and directing and they're
a passion project, most of the time it's an indie film. But this isn't, and it's going to be, super wide release, and it's going to be to AMC's, and I'm going to go see it in a big giant theater, and I'm going to
jump and scream with
urinate
everyone?
in my pantaloons.
Oh my goodness. That's fine. I probably won't attend with you, but yeah, I mean, I just got to reiterate how excited I am for it, because just in general, I'm going
to make you go.
Oh, whatever. Just in general, I've always said what I don't like about horror movies, the genre, is that a lot of times I feel that the writing suffers because they are solely trying to scare. They're like, what can we do that would be scary? Let's have something fly out at them or whatever. Jump scares and lazy writing. And I'm like, there needs to be a story that I care about. And if it happens to be scary, that's one thing. But if it's just we made a story and the whole time we were just trying to figure out how to make it scarier and scarier, like a lot of times it's not very good.
I have a feeling that you're going to forget that this is a horror movie until like halfway through it.
Yeah, that's the best kind. That's the kind that's really terrifying.
You're going to get involved in this guy being nervous around his girlfriend's parents, not only because they're his girlfriend's parents that he's serious with, because they made a point to point that out in the trailer, that he
has never met parents before,
serious girlfriend that he's had.
His friend's like, well, you don't do this.
And he's going to be nervous that everyone else is white and all of that stuff, and there's going to be tension and humor.
It's always awkward to meet new people, especially when it's somebody you care about.
And then all of a sudden, some weird shit is going to happen, and it's going to be scary.
I think there's going to be lots of moments of weird, scary stuff, and then it'll go back to normal. I hate when that happens, but I love it. But like when you're in a movie and something really creepy happens, and you're like, oh my God, it's about to get scary. And then it's like, oh, that was just weird and it's fine. And then it goes back to normal for a little bit. It like psychs you out. So you never know. It kind of really draws the tension out throughout the movie. It just gets more and more tense. And then you're like, everything's terrifying.
I'm going to strongly urge that you go with me on opening night to the theater, because I have a feeling that this would be one of those things where you would regret not going afterwards.
That's fine. I will say this. Recently we saw 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's a horror movie.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah. And so I went to see that knowing it was going to be scary. At the very least, you could say it's a scary movie.
I think it's technically sci-fi, but
sci-fi horror. That's
but
a
yeah,
genre.
It's more about scary John Goodman than anything.
Yeah. And we don't want to give too much away because that's still fairly new. But I think that 10 Cloverfield Lane has that similar thing you were talking about, where it's like most of it is just kind of like weird or whatever, and there's this like slow build to the tension, and then I swear the last 20 minutes of that movie, I've never had my heart race that fast before.
Yeah,
like
that's wild.
20 minutes straight of just like every turn, everything that happens, I'm like screaming and scared, and I mean, I had my feet up on the seat, and it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And so I like that. I mean, it's scary and I have a really hard time, but I like when they build and then everything hits at once. So that might be interesting. We'll see, because maybe it won't be that way, but that's definitely how the trailer was.
Right.
The trailer was, hey, I'm just a normal guy going on a trip. And then, oh, we hit a deer. Ah, that was kind of scary. Back to normal, just hanging out. I mean, and then all of a sudden at the end.
How hilarious would it be if you just did the whole trailer of that?
Whatever. One thing we didn't mention about the trailer, I think that's pretty pertinent.
Alliteration.
Is that the mom catches him smoking.
Yeah.
And she's like, does my daughter know you smoke? He's like, no, I'm going to quit. And then the dad's like, she can help you with that. She can hypnotize you. And he's like, I'm good. No, thank you. And then
I love that. That made me laugh.
Oh,
at that.
gosh, yeah.
I think I'm good,
well,
actually.
he kind of like winks, I think. Like, nah, I'm good. And he kind of winks at her like, I think I'm good with that. But then basically what happens at the very end when everything starts to speed up is she starts hypnotizing him. Like, it's very clear that she's like, you're sinking into the floor. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
And she's like, just go with it. And he's like, no. And then everything gets weird. At that point, it's like you don't know what's in his mind and what's not. It looks like he's sinking into the floor. It looks like there's a weird surgeon coming after him. There's like a deer carcass or a cow carcass.
A lot of stuff going on.
It gets really crazy. And so because it goes from just being like, oh, I'm going to go meet your parents, like a regular movie, and then it turns into this weird psychological thriller type thing. It's literally a psychological thing.
Yeah.
She's putting your brain in a trance. That's really scary. I think a lot of people are freaked out by that stuff, by hypnotism and stuff. A lot of people
I am.
I would never do that.
No.
And so I think just
I don't want to become a zombie.
Yeah, the idea of someone having any type of control in your brain is a terrifying thing. So I think that's another aspect of this. Yeah. But I think it's going to be great, guys.
Well, that being said, let's
right.
move on to the Rotten Tomatoes percentages.
All right.
Rotten Tomatoes percentages!
I think I went last. Nope. I think I went first last time.
Yeah.
So I would like you to go first this time.
Going first, I am going to say that critics will give Get Out an 85%.
Pretty good stuff.
And I think that audience will give it less. I think that audience will give it a 79, because I think that there will be people going into it knowing only that Jordan Peele wrote and directed it and not that it's going to be a legit horror movie.
Maybe.
And then I think that there will also be people that are going in to see a horror movie and they will be shocked. No, not shocked.
No.
They'll be disappointed with the lack of horror movie tropes that are in it.
Maybe. I don't know. Here's the thing. We keep calling it a horror movie, and it definitely is. I mean, he calls it a horror movie, but I think one thing that we need to remember is it's a psychological thriller. Like,
maybe.
I mean, it very clearly is. You can have, here's the thing, horror movies, there's so many different kinds. And I know we have so many people on Twitter who are like super into horror movies. They could be listening to me and be like, this girl doesn't know what she's talking about. I get it. But there's a lot to know about horror movies, and I definitely am not the expert by any means. But there are...
You're not an expert on horror movies?
No, not even close. But...
Well, why are we even here?
Come on. But there are monster movies, right? There are sci-fi horror movies. There are psychological thrillers that are also horrors. There's psychological thrillers that maybe wouldn't be in the horror genre, but...
That's a lot of stuff you just said.
There's possessions, there's demons, there's witches, there's ghosts, right? Okay?
Oh my.
And these are things. So and the reason I am talking about all this is because I am very specific about the type of horror movie I will see. I won't see a possession movie. Don't you dare. Don't even try that on me.
You haven't seen Paranormal Activity?
I can't handle that. I will not, and I cannot.
It's
really
just
not for me. But I can handle a ghost movie. Like The Others. So there's very specific movies I can
handle.
handle.
The Friendly Ghost.
Absolutely.
Ghostbusters.
Shut up. Okay, but no. So there are the types of movies I will watch that are scary are like Psycho, where it's a murderer. I can handle a murderer, a crazy person or whatever. Where it's ghosts like The Others. I'm like, ooh, creepy. There's a ghost around here.
I can handle a murderer.
And I can handle psychological thrillers. And the reason I think this falls under that category is because of the aspect of like, am I going crazy? There's that aspect of at first it's like, okay, I'm being paranoid. And then it's like, okay, no, something crazy is going on. And because it's almost supernatural or when you think about hypnotism, there's kind of a supernatural, it's not a super scientific thing is what I'm saying.
It's not at all scientific.
Exactly. And so it has this supernatural quality to it, this kind of like messing with your mind quality. So I think it definitely would fall under that category. And because of that, some people don't want that. Some people just want a horror movie to be a horror movie, and they don't like that. Like, you know, a lot of people would not consider Shutter Island to be a horror movie.
Right.
And they would be disappointed if they went in thinking it was, even though it's an amazing movie. So there you go. Now you guys got a little taste of the type of horror movies I like. Psycho, The Others, and Shutter Island. Those are pretty much...
Did you give it a rating yet?
My top 3. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Guys, sometimes I have other things I want to talk about. And Charlie's all like, stick to the script. And I'm like, fine.
I don't think I've ever said that to you.
Let me give a rating. I think it's going to get good reviews from the critics. I'm going to say 91%.
She just winked at me when she did that.
91%. That's really high, by the way, and I'm probably way overestimating it. But you know what? If you don't get excited about things in your life, what's the point?
What about audience?
Audience, I agree, will be lower. And part of the reason is, like you said, people expecting one thing, getting another. I think it'll still get 84%. I think most people who go to see this will know at least that it's going to be scary. And
we should make some sort of
even
bet.
if it's not what they expect, I think they're going to be like, well, it wasn't what I expected, but I liked it.
Since our ratings are so far away from each other, we should make a bet of some kind.
How far away are they?
Your
I'm 90
audience
and 80
rating,
and you're 80 and 70? I mean, in general terms.
Well, your rating was... your audience rating was the same as my critics rating.
Well, there's really no bet I'm willing to make with you.
Wow.
I'm not a gambler.
Just doesn't trust me at all.
No, I've just never been a gambler. I mean, betting is the opposite of trust. It's
what?
Betting is the opposite of trust. You're saying, I don't trust you. I don't trust you so much that I will bet money on it that you're wrong. That's exactly what betting is.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's like when you told me that
there's a difference between thinking someone is wrong and not trusting them.
Oh, well, it's like when you told me that you knew that Queen sang Crazy Little Thing Called Love.
Yes, which I was right.
And you said you know that, and that I should trust that you know what you're talking about.
Right.
And I didn't trust you because it didn't seem right to me.
And you were wrong.
And then we betted on it. I still owe you $100.
You do.
And that's why I'm not doing another bet.
You're going to be 200 in the hole.
But okay. So, got a little caught up there. We're not placing a bet on it.
Maybe.
But
undecided.
I just want to talk about how excited I am. if I can reiterate that. No, I want to talk about how I'm excited that Jordan Peele is doing something, like you said, it's a passion project, and that somebody believed in it enough to back it and give him the money he needs and make it really good. It looks like the production quality is really good.
Yeah.
Like, did you say it was Universal Studios? So, I mean, that's pretty awesome. And it's not like he has a bunch of movies under his belt. You know, they clearly, whatever they saw in his script, they liked enough that they thought it was worth putting some money behind.
Yeah.
And I think he's a great writer. And if he's excited about horror and he likes horror a lot, then he should absolutely be writing those. Because honestly, if more people who were writers wanted to sit down and write horror movies, maybe I'd watch more horror movies. I think a lot of times studios are just like, well, we haven't had a horror movie in a while. Let's pop one of those out.
I think they have a bunch of scripts on retainer.
That's probably true too.
For when they think a horror movie will do well, that they just pick one out of the...
Yeah, they're like, okay, we need a horror movie. We haven't had one in a while.
And in this case, that's obviously not the situation.
Exactly. So, I mean, let's do it, guys.
So this movie is going to be fantastic. You heard it here first. If it's not, you can take it to the bank.
What?
No,
if it's not fantastic, you can complain about us on Twitter.
Speaking of Twitter, you can follow us on Twitter at MTT Podcast. You can see when all the episodes are going up. Sometimes we put other things up there. We
blogs.
Put blogs up, which we put up on our website, which is mttpodcast.com. All the episodes will be up there. You can listen to them for hours and hours on end, and you can have fun and enjoy yourself. You can subscribe to the Entertainment Buffet YouTube channel if you're listening to us on that currently. Good for you. Hit the subscribe button. You'll make everyone very happy. And you can also follow them on Twitter at Entertain Buffet.
Also, I mean, if you're already on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like button.
Hit that like button.
Leave a comment, a positive comment. We're always all about that.
Yeah, if you leave a negative comment, don't.
We'll just cry. Don't make us cry.
I'm already crying. I've cried 3 times today.
Wow.
Mostly because the Cubs won the
yeah.
World Series last night.
Yeah, that's irrelevant.
Cubs!
Yeah, I mean, check us out. Check us out on all the platforms. And if you are on Twitter and you would like to suggest a trailer for us to watch, we will give you a shout out in our next episode. We'll do the trailer and we'll give you a shout out. Bam. So, I mean, that's like pseudo famous for you.
Pretty much.
All of our listeners will be like, who's that person? And they'll probably all go look you up. They'll probably all start following you.
Yeah.
Then you'll have a whole new following.
They'll probably just send you money for no reason.
Nope. Not going to go that far. I think my hyperbole was more realistic than your hyperbole.
Well, this has been another episode of Movie Trailer Trash. Hope you enjoyed it. Get out. Go see it.
Oh, good one.